Hello, I'm Brian Hipp, and today I'll be discussing business travel and the stresses it puts on the people that are doing the traveling. Um, the first thing we're going to start off with is the causes of stress during traveling, and some of the main causes of stress during traveling is delays in airports, lost luggage, poor accommodations, all the service that you get during your trip, changes in your regular diet because travelers are always going to be eating either at restaurants, fast food, just quick food, and they're not going to get their normal meals that they would get at home. This can really affect their health, and it actually affects their stress quite a bit. Another major stress factor is terrorist threats these days, with the lines and security that you have to go through, and just the stress of terrorist attacks when you're on planes and all of that. And the last cause of stress is unfinished work upon coming home from your travel. Just when people start thinking about all the work they're going to have when they come back, the write-ups of what they've done on their trip, paper, just stacks of paper piling up on their desk. The bosses are still going to expect them to get their work done even though they've been away traveling. So this is also a major stress factor. Some added influences of stress that have occurred in the last couple of years with the cutbacks that businesses are taking. Travel expenses for businesses is a large expense, and nowadays many businesses are cutting back all their expenses, and traveling is one of the major ones that they're cutting back on. And one way they're doing it is lowering the accommodations for their travelers. This is no longer they're flying first class and they're getting a service of first class. They're not staying in five-star hotels anymore. They're staying in much cheaper budget-in hotels that come with a lot less accommodations. And some of those things that they're missing are there's no exercise facilities in these new cheaper hotels that they're staying in. There's no restaurants, no sun-dry shops. Also with the cheaper hotels, you're going to get more noise and more sleep disruptions just because you're not in that high-class hotel anymore, and just more general irritants. What companies don't realize when they're doing this, when they're putting their business travelers in cheaper hotels, is that the accommodations that come with those more expensive hotels, such as exercise facilities and restaurants, are actually stress reducers. So when they're taking away these by putting them in cheaper hotels, it's just raising their stress level even more when they're traveling because they don't have a way to release stress by exercising or by dining out at a nice restaurant that's connected to their hotel with convenience. So now all that stress is just bottling up in these business travelers, and it's becoming more stressful. Business travel is becoming more stressful as the years go on, and as budget cuts keep making it harder for business travelers to have stress release options. Next we're going to talk about pre-trip stress. There's stress that can build up before even going on the trip. So this is just going to add to the stress that is going to be piled on during the trip. And I break these down in three different categories. The first is role demands. An example of this is balancing between being an employee and a parent. And just being in the office, there's going to be stress put on as being an employee from the boss, getting your work done, making deadlines. Then you also have to balance that, many have to balance that with being a parent. And the stresses of having a sick kid at home or problems at school, and balancing these two can be very stressful for many business parents. And this is just stress that's added on before even going on to a trip. The next is interpersonal demands, and this is stress that is, an example would be like sexual harassment or having poor leadership in your office. These are, put a lot of stress on people, more stress than they need when they're going on to a trip that's going to be even more stressful for them. and it's just piling on. And the last is physical demands, just physical stress of being in the office every day, just wearing on you, long hours, being at a computer screen for 8 hours a day, just all the work you have to get done. So this physical stress before a trip is just added on by the trip. Next, we're going to talk about the cost that business travel costs companies. Business travel is a necessity for most companies still, but it's a huge cost for them as well, and they're trying to cut back in any way that they can nowadays. Annually, businesses spend over $200 billion on business travel, and this is just on the traveling, the hotels, the food, the payment for food, gas. This is there's also been a study that shows that when these business travelers go on, they get stress through traveling, and when they come home, this stress actually carries over into their work and their productivity. And when they come home, they're not getting near as much done as they would be in a normal work day. And this productivity loss is actually shown to be just as much of an expense as the traveling expenses, which is another $200 billion for companies. So along with the $200 billion they're spending on traveling, they're also losing productivity through the stress that's added to the business travelers. And the productivity is only getting worse and worse as the budget cuts go on, because more and more stress is being put on these business travelers. So as they try to try to cut back on the $200 billion for traveling, they're just adding more to the lost productivity. So that's one thing that businesses have to think about when they're cutting back. Next, we have some preventive stress management, some things that workers can do to prevent stress, things they can do when they come home to relieve stress. The first is the primary prevention is to be organized for your trip. Many people say just being organized takes off a lot of stress. You don't have to worry about timelines, money. If you're organized, you have your tickets printed out, you have a schedule made out every day. You don't have that worry of if you're missing something, or you're going to miss a meeting, you forget a meeting. You have it all right there and you're organized. Another thing is to just take mental vacations during your flight or drives, and by this they mean don't think about work during your flight. Don't think about what you're going to be doing on your trip, who you have to see. Don't think about the work you have to do when you get back, or take a mental vacation. Just think about anything but work. And there's actually statistics that says that 95% of people don't think of work during a flight. And this was taken by a survey by Delta Airlines. They said 55% of the people usually take advantage of the onboard entertainment, which is a good idea for business travelers to relieve stress. Just watch a movie or listen to the music that's available on the flight. This can take actually quite a bit of stress away from them, just relaxing and not thinking about work for that 2 or 3 hour flight. It also said 81% of people just do the normal read for pleasure, either if it's the magazines or they bring a book just to get away and forget about work for a little bit. Some secondary prevention would be either during or after the trip. Exercising. This is a huge stress relief and stress prevention for business travelers. Being healthy in general can lower your stress, and exercising is a good release of stress. Along with that is eating healthy. When you're out, try to stay away from the greasy foods, even though it's easy. Eating healthy and being healthy is a huge way to reduce stress. And the third is tertiary prevention. And an example of this would be bringing family along with you on your business travel. And a study done by Travel Industry Association of America said that 21% of business travelers actually combine their business travel with a family vacation. And this is obviously a huge stress relief. You can come home just like you would be coming home from work, and you get to see your family instead of coming home to an empty hotel. And so just bringing your family along can be a huge boosting morale and lower your stress on a business trip. There are actually advantages of having stress if you don't have too much stress. Pause it. I didn't. Lastly, stress can you can actually have advantages from stress if it's not too much stress or distress. Using stress, you can use it in positive, healthy, and productive ways. Working at the optimal amount of stress, you can actually heighten your mental and physical abilities for brief periods of time. This can be seen, in many professional athletes. They're a prime example of how they can use stress and excel while under stress. A good visual of this is the Yerkes-Dodson law, which shows you that there is a optimal stress load, and when the stress becomes too high, then your performance starts dropping off, and you have distress, which is bad stress, and can hurt you physically and mentally. So there's an optimal amount of stress, and that's what people have to know what their limitations are and know how to not get into too much stress where it starts hurting them physically and mentally. They need to find that median where they're working at the optimal stress level, where it's actually helping them, and they're heightening their mental and physical abilities and actually making them better. And this has been the discussion on the stresses of business travel. Thank you.